What is good and what is up, y'all? It's your boy here, Jay, back and better than ever with another episode of Jay's Point After. Sorry for the delay. Been having some things on my plate that I needed to take care of. But we're back. We're making these videos on Jay's Point After and all other banter episodes. I'm excited to get into it because episode 50 of Jay's Point After, man, it's been a long time coming, but we got 50 episodes now under our belt, and I'm so excited to get into this one specifically because we got our World Series matchup. The marathon is over. The MLB regular season and postseason is almost concluded, and now we have our matchup in the World Classic between the Los Angeles Dodgers and now the Toronto Blue Jays, who last night went ahead and clinched their position into the World Series for the first time since 1993, 32 years. But also we got some NFL to get into. NBA season is today, man. I cannot believe it. Man, time is flying. And also NHL season is back. Not to mention with a dabble of college football. So we got so much to get into right here on this special edition, episode 50 of Jay's Point After. Let's go. What's up, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Jay's Point After, episode 50. Man, can't believe that we are here, 50 episodes under our belt after this one here, and we got a lot to talk about in this 50th episode. We got our World Series matchup as the Los Angeles Dodgers are now going to be facing off against the Toronto Blue Jays, as last night the Blue Jays clinched their World Series appearance for the first time in 32 years. We also got NFL Week 7, College Football Week 8, NHL has been underway, as well as the NBA is going to be tipping off tonight. Can't believe that it's finally here. Finally, as in, time has been flying. But back to the point, we got so much to talk about in this 50th episode, and I am so very juiced. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Starting with the MLB, as the MLB postseason has taken off, been in full swing, and now we got a World Series matchup right here, right now, as the Los Angeles Dodgers are going to be facing off against the Toronto Blue Jays. The marathon is close to over as the Blue Jays advance to the World Series for the first time since 1993 when they won the World Series, as the Blue Jays take out the Mariners last night 4-3 in an infamous Game 7 and advance to their third World Series all time, and the first time in 32 years, like I said, since 1993. It's just amazing to see for the Toronto Blue Jays to go ahead and get that done, but it's just also very heartbreaking for the Mariners because of the fact that they've never had a World Series appearance, so they were so very close, outs away from making their first World Series appearance, and it seemed like it was going to be this year. I had personally chosen them to go and advance to the World Series and win it. But with all that being said, props to the Blue Jays. They deserved it. They came back and won those last two games at home, and they needed to do that, and they did that. And led by Vladimir Guerrero, just if it wasn't for Shohei Ohtani and what he did the other night, and kind of overshadowing the whole entire postseason when it comes to performances, Vlad has been absolutely on fire. And I wouldn't be shocked if that carried over and continued in this World Series that is going to be starting here soon. And man, I can't believe it. But George Springer is the hero, not Vladimir Guerrero, as he went ahead and put his backpack on, willed the Toronto Blue Jays to this win and to advancing to the World Series. And like I said, put his backpack on, but also put the experience from his back pocket on display from just the postseasons in the past, from the Astros and whatnot. But there will probably be a statue of George Springer in that Game 7 home run. It seems that the Blue Jays always have Game 7 home run drama, especially back in the day with Joe Carter. But like I said, just sad for the Mariners, who were outs away from their first World Series appearance. Kirby, Dell, and Julio and Cal had clutch home runs to get to a 3-1 lead late to the game. Bottom of the 7th is as far as they got with that lead. But with the runners on, Springer has this history of doing crazy things in the clutch in the postseason and did just that by carrying over from the Astros. And man, like I said, shout out to the Blue Jays, but just heartbreaking, heart-wrenching for the Seattle Mariners and the whole entire city of Seattle. But how did we get here? As we go ahead and get into, like I said, how we got here, as the Dodgers, Brewers, Mariners, and Blue Jays all matched up in the LCS, there will be a new World Series. There will be no World Series rematch, and there will be possibly a repeat So that would be the first time since 2008, like I said in my last podcast, with the Padres banter. But all that being said, there could possibly be a repeat here for the first time since 2008 when the Philadelphia Phillies went ahead and got that done with Ryan Howard, Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, Shane Victorino, Carlos Ruiz, in the Roy Halladay's of the world, and in the Cliff Lees of the world. Man, that team was stacked. But back to the point, the Reds, Padres, Guardians, and Red Sox all end their postseason. In the wild card series, the Yankees, Tigers, Cubs, and Phillies all ended their seasons in the divisional series. And like I said, it's not necessarily what we expected. When it comes to a matchup, and not a lot of people anticipated the Blue Jays to go ahead and get this done. I personally was on record saying, I wanted to see what they could possibly do, because in history they haven't done it. At least recent history, they haven't gotten done, especially with Vlad on the team and Bo Bichette on the team, even though he is not playing in this postseason. That's another piece to the puzzle that I feel like is crazy. If you drop a Bo Bichette in this lineup, it's even more lethal, and even more scary. So I feel like this Blue Jays team has finally figured it out. And on my podcast early on, when I was on strictly audio, I was always lamenting towards the Blue Jays, and really hoping and praying that they would get it going and kind of back up my word for, how much I have been fighting for them and riding for them, and seeing exactly what was on the other side of the mountain. And this is it. This is exactly what I expected from the Blue Jays. It was a matter of time, of the maturation of Bo Bichette, the maturation of Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and figuring out who the right manager was. They had been having manager here, manager there, that had gotten them to the postseason, but nobody not like Schneider. Nobody like who Schneider is and brings to the table, and it really shows throughout the players. He's a player's coach. He's also someone who does the right thing at the right time, and he's not afraid to go ahead and show his emotions on his sleeve. But back to the point, I always felt like this would come into fruition for the Blue Jays. I just didn't know how soon it would come. I personally didn't think it was going to come this year because of the fact that, like I said, they haven't gotten it done in the postseason, and I felt like they were one piece away from really being a World Series contender, and that missing piece was Bo Bichette, personally, I felt. But Andres Gimenez has filled in right perfectly for them. He had a 2 home run game early on. He has had a couple more home runs on that. Maybe not home runs, but just a couple, key knocks, great defensive plays. Obviously, his glove's always been there, and has filled right in for Bo Bichette. Obviously, not going to take his position by any means, but has filled right in enough for, this Blue Jays team not to miss a beat, for this Blue Jays lineup not to miss a beat. And they've really shown, they're, lethal. They can, hit the ball out of the ballpark. They can hit for average. They can also play small ball. And this is just what you want in a matchup between the Los Angeles Dodgers, who have a fantastic rotation, starting pitching rotation, and a great lineup in the Toronto Blue Jays. Not to say that the Mariners lineup wasn't that great at all. They had the big dumper. They had Julio Rodriguez and company, and Eugenio Suarez. But I just felt personally Blue Jays could have more firepower in the way that they were swinging the bats this postseason. I mean, there was countless times they put up double-digit runs. The Mariners did have, I feel like a little bit less firepower than there, but up there with the Blue Jays. Obviously not enough, because the Blue Jays won this series, and had a little bit more firepower with that last George Springer home run. But the Blue Jays, I felt like, were always just one piece away from getting over the hump, and didn't know if it was going to be this soon. I had said it in a couple years prior. Watch out for the Blue Jays. Watch out for the Blue Jays. They missed the playoffs. And they didn't do anything in the playoffs. And it's like, dang, like I feel like they're right there, and this is the year. I feel like this could be the year that the Blue Jays go ahead and get it done. It's going to be an all-blue World Series between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. But back to the point of how exactly we got here, and how the Blue Jays finally advanced to the World Series. The LCS was interesting and somewhat dominated as both road teams went up 2-0 in the series. The Mariners went into Toronto and took 2 from the Blue Jays, and the Dodgers did the same as well in Milwaukee, taking 2 from the Brewers. Not sure if that's happened in LCS history, but just very unanticipated, unexpected that both road teams would be up 2-0 in the series. You would expect both of them to at least get it done, knowing that they had 3 straight games at home. Following that, and the Mariners just didn't get the job done in games 3 and 4. At least they won game 5, but the Dodgers going ahead and just sweeping the Brewers. But let's stick to the ALCS as that was most recent. Let's go back to last week as the Blue Jays saved their season on the road as well and thumped the Mariners 13-4 in Seattle on 18 hits, hitting Kirby around in a pitcher-friendly ballpark. Vlad stopped a slump for 0 for 7 and went 4 for 4 with a home run. Bieber also looked like Cy Young Bieber as he went 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, a walk, 8 Ks on 88 pitches. After giving up that 2-run home run to Julio, Bieber settled down and got the job done. In Game 4, the Blue Jays dominated again as they go on to tie the series on the road and win 8-2 behind a great Max Scherzer performance, going 5 2/3 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 4 walks, 5 Ks on 87 pitches, and a W on his 500th career start and 5th most strikeouts in postseason history with 176 behind Andy Pettitte. I mean, just unreal by Max Scherzer at age 40, doing what he's doing in this postseason at this, magnitude is just unreal. And Snyder came out there wanting to pull him, and he, if you guys seen that clip or was watching the game rather, you would have seen, Scherzer was very animated and saying that he didn't want to come out to the game. They later asked him later on, in the post game that, what was going on, what did you say? And he said, I basically didn't want to come out in a more animated tone and in different language is what he was saying. So, Max Scherzer still doing it at age 40, just unreal doing it. Like I said, at this magnitude, at this leverage, you can't say enough. I don't care if his fastball isn't at 98, 99 as it once was. He's still a pitcher, and you can see it. And you really can see it in a lot of pitchers, right? I think this is really the only position that you can really see the value of pitchers being pitchers. When they're young, they got a lot of velocity, they got a lot of spin, but when they're older, they become pitchers, and you can really see who was a pitcher throughout their career. Bartolo Colon's of the world, Max Scherzer's of the world, Verlander's of the world. Those are some guys that you understand. Yeah, they probably could, get it up there a little bit. Maybe not Bartolo. Bartolo was always a pitcher. And that's why he lasted so long is because his velocity was never up there. He never really threw out his arm or anything like that. Scherzer, Verlander obviously threw a little bit harder, but you could see that, in the back ends of their career, they're pitchers, right? I know Verlander didn't have, the back end that Scherzer is having, but still up there with what they do, one of the best of all time. But back to the point, Vlad hit his second home run in as many nights and now seems to have flipped the switch back to sizzling in the playoffs. The Blue Jays absolutely dominated after losing the first 2 games at home, and the Mariners dominated those 2 games. Now the roles are reversed as the fields are reversed as well, and in Game 5, pivotal Game 5, the Mariners did not want to go back to Toronto and not have no wins in Seattle. Go ahead and winning in a comeback fashion 6-2 with a Cal Raleigh home run and a Eugenio Suarez grand slam to come within 1 win of Seattle Mariners going to the World Series for the first time in franchise history. It would have been really sad to not see a win in Seattle in the league championship series. So I'm glad that they went ahead and got that done for the city of Seattle. Just imagine winning your first 2 games in Toronto, losing 3 straight games, now going back to Toronto and having to win those 2 games just wouldn't have been likely. So thank goodness that they went ahead and at least got that win in Seattle, but obviously didn't prevail in the long run. But at the end of the day, going ahead and getting that done, trying to get to the World Series for the first time in franchise history. They were one win away. But in Game 7, they were outs away. So getting back to it, the Mariners, who may have deemed as the ones to shine in the postseason, have done so. And by the long ball, having 20 of 25 runs at that point in time coming from the long ball. And it had not disappointed after a rocky 2 games in 3 and 4 in Seattle. They came back and showed why they can win the World Series, but obviously not going to the World Series anymore. Bryce Miller was outstanding going forward, innings pitched, 4 hits, an earned run, 2 walks, 4 Ks on 56 pitches as he left it for Brash, Wood, Spear, and Munoz to close the door. After a onslaught, the Blue Jays only went 2 for 11 with runners in scoring position, 8 left on base, and the Mariners came back, even though also only having 1 for 5 with runners in scoring position. In Game 6, the Blue Jays saved their season once again as Vlad's home run helped in the 5th and 6th of the postseason, and Barger having a home run as well with 11 hits to follow, beating the Mariners 6-2, forcing a Game 7. Gilbert went 4 innings pitched, 7 hits, 4 earned runs, a walk, and 3 Ks. Not doing terrible, but they eventually got to him. Yasevich went 5 innings pitched, 6 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 7 Ks. Just absolutely outstanding. And then the one and only Game 7 that we went ahead and lamented to early. The Blue Jays obviously prevailed and managed to pull out in advance in a close one, 4-3, as George Springer whipped out, a great moment for his postseason career and for the Blue Jays, his postseason vet jacket, if you will, and put the backpack on with a 3-run home run. When all hope was lost in the bottom of the 7th, down 3-1, he hit a bomb that jolted the 6. Bieber wasn't terrible, but went 3 and 2/3 innings pitched, 7 hits, 2 earned runs, a walk, and 5 Ks. And Kirby went 4 innings pitched, 4 hits, an earned run, a walk, and 3 Ks. Wu didn't do terrible after Kirby, but left those runners on base as Bizardo gave up the home run as the Mariners would then lose, only 9 outs away from their first World Series appearance. It was just so much drama. That's what the postseason's about. You can't make it up. From the grand slam from Eugenio Suarez in that win in Game 5 to this Game 7 home run from George Springer, baseball is so dramatic, and you just can't make it up. It's like magic. The moments that happen, you expect, really nothing to happen because of how big these moments become for some of these guys, and for you to do something like that, like George Springer did, and man, can only dream of those types of moments to put yourself in a position to move on to the World Series or even win one. And you can't say enough about it. Baseball is just a beautiful sport. It's just so timeless, I feel like. And how can you not love baseball? How can you not love baseball? I mean, from, like I said, the dramatics to the emotion to the crowd roars to just everything, how you realize these guys were kids at one point in time. How can you not be romantic about this game? But let's move on to the NLCS because we got so much more to talk about besides baseball. The Dodgers also go ahead and sweep the Brewers and are headed to the World Series for the second straight year, looking to clinch back-to-back titles for the first time since the Phillies in 2008. And Shohei Ohtani continues to show why he should be heavily cemented in the GOAT debate, if not already, and considered heavily as the greatest because of his playoff performance last week, going 3 for 3 with 3 bombs, just unbelievable, in a walk, obviously, 3 RBIs, and also just was unstoppable on the mound, going 6 innings pitched, 2 hits, 3 walks, 10 Ks on 100 pitches, just unreal. Unicorn-like, guys, because it's just unreal to watch what Ohtani is doing. I'm not trying to glaze him. I'm a Padre fan, guys. You know this. It's unreal. I can't say it enough. We are watching greatness before our very eyes, and it's just amazing. No words. He's one of one. The Dodgers go on to win Game 5 and Game 5. Win the game, 5-1, and sweep the Brewers, who tallied up 4 to the Dodgers' 15 runs in the series and never really put up a fight besides their pitching, who really kept them within the games until the end of the games. So they really were there until the end of the games. Like I said, just was what we expected from the Brewers, who had a fantastic regular season, but the Dodgers are the defending champs for a reason, and now are going to the World Series for their 23rd appearance in their franchise history, and looking to capture their 9th in their franchise and 8th in LA. But back to the Brewers, I won't throw too much shade at them in saying that that's what we expected from them. Definitely not a sweep. But maybe losing to the Dodgers, okay. The Brewers had a great regular season, and that's always been the narrative with them specifically. There's been a couple other teams that do that as well, but they just haven't gotten the job done. Haven't gotten the job done. Haven't gone to the dance. They've been to the dance, but haven't gone to the final dance is what I'm saying. And having the season that they had, having the firepower that they had, you expect them to put up a little bit more fight than they did, and it just wasn't there. But let's see how we got there. The Dodgers would take a commanding 3-0 lead versus the Milwaukee Brewers after winning the first two games in Milwaukee and the first in LA. The Dodgers won Game 3 in Los Angeles 3-1 after dominating, showing a dominating showing from Tyler Glasnow as he went 5 2/3 innings, pitched 3 hits, an earned run, 3 walks, 8 Ks on 99 pitches, but unfortunately didn't get the win. The Dodgers pitching staff in this NLCS is nothing short of unstoppable, as Glasnow capped off a terrific 3-game stretch of Snell, Yamamoto, and Glasnow to secure 3 games for the Dodgers, who have outscored the Brewers 10-3 at that point in time. Ohtani is 2 for 11 with 3 walks, but had key hits. The Dodgers lineup around Muncy, Kike, Freeman, Betts, Edman, Will Smith were really getting the job done all around Ohtani, so didn't have to worry about him going 2 for 11. The bullpen was tired going into the series, but the starting pitching, having dominated so much, helped the bullpen going forward for the Dodgers and will now be hard to be in the World Series as the Brewers. This was, like I said, somewhat of what we expected. Everyone knew, even with their potent offense and great record during the regular season, that it would be more likely than not translate into the postseason, and it did not. It did in the first series versus the Cubs, but not, facing a tad bit better pitching staff in the Dodgers. The Dodgers closed the door quickly on, the Brewers' great season. So ultimately they had a good roster, but like every year, it comes down to execution and pitching, and it wasn't there during the series. Pitching hasn't been terrible, but the bats were nowhere to be found. So the Brewers had a great season, and, I expected them to be here at the end of the season, but ultimately when it comes down to it, it comes down to experience, and it comes down to pitching. The pitching was there, the experience wasn't. I think that they will eventually, put this in their back pocket and hopefully, have a little flame under their belly, under their butts rather, and see what they can do in the future, because they do have, a great pitching staff going forward. But you have to want it, right? I feel like the Milwaukee Brewers were there. They definitely did want it, but not enough. You can't tell me that you're getting swept, in that facet. It's not good enough, and I know the Brewers know that. And it was quite an easy win for the Dodgers to get to the World Series. And like I said, I'm not a Dodger fan, but if I was the Dodgers fans, I'd just be chuckling in my chair like cakewalk. And I'm not trying to throw shade at the Dodgers by any means, but that is essentially what you want. You don't want something super tough. Obviously, you want to face tough teams, but in the sense of the Dodgers, they don't really have to face tough teams. They got the experience. And so having this type of series right before the World Series is something so, a blessing from the baseball gods, essentially, because of the pitching rotation getting healthy, the bullpen getting, the rest that they are, and the lineup teeing off the way that they have, and then Ohtani having that game gives them a whole sense of confidence going into the World Series. So I can't imagine that they would manage to win this World Series and win back-to-back for the first time since 2008 when the Phillies did it. But I mean, great year by the Brewers, great year by the Mariners, both fantastic teams across the board. But just when it comes down to it, you just have to want it more than the other team. And the Blue Jays wanted it more, quite frankly. And the Dodgers wanted it more, obviously. So, man, it's been a hell of a season. The marathon is close to over. But outside of the MLB postseason, the MLB has recently announced that they will be implementing the new ABS challenge system and will be using this throughout the entire MLB regular season. There will be umps still behind the plate, but will not be their call. You can challenge only up to twice a game, so the pace will continue, but hopefully no more blown calls. That was the vital piece in this whole situation, and these teams and player success, right? You blowing calls leads to other people losing jobs. So hopefully, this changes, for the better. And I think it's big for people's careers, but also eliminate human error. But we will see how it will pan out and affect the game. I'm an old school baseball guy. Obviously, the game should never be changed. And that's just the way that I felt. But I felt like it still needed to be dealt with in the sense of human error and the different way you could, possibly do it. But at the end of the day, this is just fine. Manny Ramirez going ahead and also looking to get back into the coaching ranks. This is just other news for you guys in the MLB world, within the MLB. So, like I said, Manny Ramirez is looking to get a coaching position and coaching ranks in the MLB. This is 985 Sports Hub broke this in Boston. That their article, that would be awesome to see Manny get back into the MLB ranks. And the Padres are also looking to get a new manager as they are out of a manager. Mike Shildt decided to retire earlier this week, somewhat shocking to this team, but not completely out of ordinary as some wanted him out after this season. If it didn't do anything, if he didn't do anything, but that being said, it had nothing to do with the early exit of Mike Shildt and people wanting him out, as it rather dealt with health issues and also just life. Mike confessed that his pressure and expectation was something he felt, looking around, seeing if this is something that he wanted, being the manager of the Padres, and he felt it, was time to step away. It's tough for the Pods now looking for a new manager in the 2026 season. He was also receiving death threats, so that's something that you have to consider as well. But at the end of the day, I just want to, show my appreciation for Mike and what he did for the Padres, but it's going to be a bummer. I mean, we had really good chemistry from the players and, the coaches, and hoping that we get someone that understands the situation, understands what the Padres are going through at this moment in time, and understand that our window is very small. Not incredibly small, but I feel like we need to get things done here within the next 3 to 4 to 5 years. And if that doesn't get done, I'm not sure when will. So hopefully, we find the next person that will be the right fit. I think this AJ Preller hire is the most important of his career, to be quite frank. Yes, we've had great managers in the past, Bo Mel and, and obviously Shill and, obviously Bochy back in the day, but bringing back Bochy, I don't think is going to be very good because of the fact that, yes, I understand he won a World Series a couple years ago, but there's been rumor that he hasn't really connected with the players in this past season after he came out of retirement. So maybe Benji Gill, who's been very familiar with the Padres, grew up in San Diego as well. But there's just other names floating around. So we'll see what happens with the Padres. But there's a plethora of other teams that are out of a manager as well, including the Atlanta Braves. Snitker is not returning. The Orioles, the Rockies, the Angels, as Ron Washington is not returning. The Marlins, Twins, Giants, as Bomel is not returning as well. And the Nationals. So we'll see what happens with all these teams and what managers will be landing in new places. But that is what the MLB season is about right now. Or MLB news, rather. So, I mean, very exciting that, we got our World Series matchup and the marathon is almost over, but also very bittersweet as this MLB season has been so power-packed. There's so much going on. And, man, we got a lot to get into when we come, here soon with this World Series matchup. But I'm excited to get into that. But after that, it's going to be real crickets for a couple months until we find out what's going to happen in these winter meetings between the Padres and all these other teams getting new managers and new faces and new places. But will there be a lockout? That's another question that will be happening. Will there be a lockout in the future because of what's been happening with the whole situation with deferring contracts and creating powerhouses? Will there be a lockout? I'm not throwing shade at the Dodgers. I'm not saying that they're the prime issue, but they're a prime example. So we'll see what happens. I'm not saying that there will be, but will there be a lockout? Go ahead and throw in the comments if you think there will be a lockout in the 2026 or 2027 season. But right after the break, let's get into some NFL talk because we got so much more to get into in this 50th episode. Welcome back from the break. Now that we have concluded with the MLB talk and the World Series matchup between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays, let's get into some pigskin talk for my football heads because we have so much to get into since we last chopped it up in our podcast. So right here, since we last talked, the NFL landscape looked totally different, and now with Week 8 looming, many teams and players find themselves making a name for themselves. Starting with the rookies and early candidates of Rookie of the Year specifically is no quarterback, rather a wide receiver, as Amika Igupa is everything you want when it comes to a wide receiver and their potential as a wide receiver one. Although hurt, looking to come back, as Baker Mayfield is also an MVP frontrunner in my book. Just absolutely fantastic what he's doing this year with this Tampa Bay Bucks team. A lot of receivers down, but managing to still pull out these wins. Unfortunately, didn't win last night against the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football, but at the end of the day, still an MVP frontrunner in my book. Tons of headlines within the NFL from Baker, Joe Flacco, now a Bengal, Dillion Gabriel now starting, Niners' entire roster depleted, Chiefs finding their footing again and getting Rice back, New England beating up the Bills a couple weeks ago, and Buffalo or the Eagles having offensive troubles, and the headlines never have been more intriguing, even though the Eagles last week, found their footing a little bit there as well. Like I said, but then last week, Broncos went in with a crazy deficit and then find a way with a crazy comeback. Colts showing that they are legit. Bears continue to win. Raiders and Miami might look to make a change here at quarterback soon, and the Niners continue to just battle through all these injuries and manage to win at 5-2. Just to name a few headlines we have going for this week. But before we talk about all the drama, let's get into last week's slate while also glossing over each team's past couple of games. So much parity in the NFL right now, so let's get into it, y'all. Did miss a couple weeks, so there's a ton of games to cover, but can't be too long on what we want to go ahead and talk about. But like I said, without further ado, the Week 7 slate from this past weekend, starting with the Thursday night game as the Steelers went into Cincinnati and got beat by the Bengals. Unexpected win here by the Bengals, especially since it was only the second game of Joe Flacco. But they went ahead and got the job done against the Steelers, showing that they could be maybe a contender with Joe Flacco, as Flacco went 31 for 47, 342 and 3 touchdowns. Jalen Warren did have a great game, 16 carries, 127 yards, and Jamar Chase having a career day and having 16 receptions, most in Bengals history, 161 yards with 1 touchdown. Just absolutely crazy. And then Sunday, we had another crazy slate, as unfortunately my Chargers went down in Los Angeles, getting absolutely belt to cheeks, 38-24. Just not great, even though Justin Herbert did have 428 yards. He threw the ball 55 times, had 3 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor ran all over the Chargers defense, 16 carries, 94 yards, 3 touchdowns. Yeah, 3 touchdowns. Hat trick. Oronde Gaston also had a career day with 7 receptions, 164 yards, and 1 touchdown, breaking Antonio Gates' rookie record for tight end receiving yards, but just wasn't enough there. Just wasn't enough this past weekend. I was there at the game. We didn't look good. Offensive line looked rather poor, as usual. Defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. Just didn't look good. And when we're coming and playing from behind, it's just not going to be great. Our offense isn't potent enough to put up that many points on the board. So when we don't score first, it's just unfortunate, and it's not going to be a good day for us. But moving on to the next game, because I'll get more into the Chargers here on Chargers Banter later today. But the Rams went ahead and absolutely put belt to cheeks on the Jaguars in an early game at 6 a.m., 35-7. Even though Trevor Lawrence did have 296 on 48 pass attempts, 23 of 48 and 1 touchdown, Kyrie Williams had 12 carries for 54 yards, and Travis Hunter having his biggest day as a wide receiver, 8 receptions, 101 yards, and his first touchdown in the NFL. So congratulations to Travis Hunter. I think he's finding his footing there on the offensive side of the ball. Moving on to the Saints and Bears, as the Bears went ahead and took out the Saints for their 4th straight win, 26-14. Rattler did have a decent day, though, though, 20 for 32, 233 with 2 touchdowns. DeAndre Swift had a fantastic day, 19 carries, 124 yards, 1 touchdown. And Olave, 5 receptions, 98 yards, and 2 tutties there for Olave. Also a great day for him. But moving on to the Dolphins and the Browns. The Dolphins completely in disarray as the Browns, who are also 1-5 going into 1-4, 5 rather going into that game, just put belt to cheeks on the Dolphins, who had the same record as them, 31-6. Dillion Gabriel in his second start only went 13 of 18, 116, no touchdowns. Quinshon Judkins rather was the star of the game, 25 carries, 84 yards, and 3 touchdowns in the hat trick as well. And Eskridge for the Dolphins led the receptions with 2 receptions and 45 yards. Like I said, got to figure out there in Miami. Not sure if Mike McDaniel or Tua Tagovailoa are going to last. Quinn Ewers did make an appearance in this game later on because of the fact that Tua did throw 3 picks again. Back-to-back games, so throwing 3 picks of Tua from the Chargers and the Browns. So not good. Just not good. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not going to get on a long tangent about that. They just got to figure it out, and not sure where you go. But first order of business, I think, is to get Mike McDaniel out of Miami. Moving on to the Patriots and the Titans, Mike Vrabel playing his former team, but put belt to cheeks 31-13. The Titans do not look good, but Cam Ward looked semi-decent, going 25 for 34, 255, and 1 touchdown. Ramondre Stevenson having a game, 18 carries, 88 yards, and 1 touchdown. And Dyke, 4 receptions, 70 yards, and 1 tutty. Like I said, the Titans just not looking great this season. Probably going to get the number 1 pick again, so we'll see what happens there. But the Patriots, 5-2. Watch out for the Pats. Moving on to the Raiders at the Chiefs in Arrowhead, looking to try and make a little bit of a statement in Arrowhead because it's a rivalry game, I'm guessing. I don't know, but they didn't do anything at all. The Raiders just absolutely got put in the dirt, 31-0. If there was any belt to cheeks this weekend, this was it right here, as the Chiefs just absolutely whooped on their in-division foe. Mahomes, 26-35, 266, 3 touchdowns. Isaiah Pacheco, 15 carries, 57 yards and a tutty. And Travis Kelce, 3 receptions for 54 yards. Belt to cheeks. There's not much more to say about that right there. Chiefs win and advance to 4-3. The Eagles went ahead and beat the Minnesota Vikings 28-22 in a barn burner, as it was looking very slim right there for the Eagles at one point. They might have, lost the reins of the game, but they held on, and they got it done through the air, rather. Jalen Hurts, 19 of 23, 323, and 3 touchdowns, but Jordan Mason ran the ball well for the Vikings, 15 carries, 57 yards, and 1 touchdown, but Devontae Smith having a career day, 9 receptions for 183 yards and a touchdown with that long 80-yard touchdown pass, longest of his career, and maybe throw the ball more for the Eagles. I don't know. But you got Saquon in the backfield. You got a disposal of different people. Not sure where you want to go. The Vikings putting up a fight with Carson Wentz. So playing his former team here in this matchup, and also playing with his childhood team in the Vikings and starting for them. So second straight start there. We'll see if J.J. McCarthy starts next week. But at the end of the day, Carson Wentz and the Vikings still trying to put up a fight. And I'm still wouldn't rule out the Vikings this season, guys, because of the fact that, they're always scrappy. They're going to find a way to be there in the end. The Panthers go ahead and prevail against the Jets. The Jets are now the only winless team in the entire NFL. I think they were last week even, losing 13-6 to the Panthers, who are now 4-3. I told you guys, watch out for the Panthers. Yes, the first couple of weeks were looking vague, but they found their footing, and it only takes a couple of weeks for Bryce Young to find his footing, kind of like Bo Nix in that sense. Once that happens, just like we saw Bryce Young at the end of last season, hear me out, Panthers might be there at the end of the season. Bryce Young going 15 for 25, 138, and 1 touchdown. Just an efficient day there, just trying to get, things done. Rico Dowdle, 17 carries, 79 yards. Also a great day for Rico Dowdle. Really found his footing in Carolina. Xavier Legette, 9 receptions, 92 yards, and a touchdown, going ahead and getting that tutty to get them past the New York Jets and the Jets. I understand Justin Fields is in a terrible situation, and I feel bad for him because of the fact that he's been on several teams that really haven't prioritized what's going on. And obviously, the Jets really don't prioritize anything. Um, it's just tough to root for that team. I understand right now, being the only winless team in the NFL right now, and being at this state, having the players that you do on that team doesn't make sense. I think you got to make a change at the helm with Aaron Glenn. I understand it is his first year at the helm, but it is just way too bad, way too quick. And Justin Fields needs to find somebody that he can gel with. I think that he's found a team that really wants him and likes him, but just not the right coach again. So we'll see what happens with the Jets moving forward, but I think there will be a coaching change maybe this week, if not next. Moving on to the Giants, they should have won against the Broncos. They were up 19-0 at one point and 26-6 or 26-3. Or at one point they were up by a lot, and they didn't win this game. They went back and forth at the end of the game and still didn't manage to win this game as the Broncos prevail 33-32, going ahead and winning this game in Denver. Dart did have a decent day though, 15 of 33, 283 with 3 touchdowns. J.K. Dobbins, 14 carries, 81 yards. Wan'Dale Robinson, 6 receptions for 95 yards. But the Broncos improving to 5-2 and now first place in the AFC West after the Chiefs and the Chargers all are both 4-3, and obviously the Raiders are 2-5. We'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens. The Broncos are 3-0 at home, but prevail against the Giants. The Giants have been putting up a fight against teams all season long, and I wouldn't be surprised if you saw them fight for a wild card spot here at the end. Moving on to the Commanders and the Cowboys, another in-division rivalry. The Commanders didn't put their best foot forward, and Jaden Daniels actually got hurt in this game, leaving this game early as Dak Prescott went 21 of 30, 264, 3 touchdowns. Jamal Williams went 19 carries, 116 yards, and 1 touchdown. Javonte Williams, CeeDee Lamb, 5 receptions, 110 yards, and 1 touchdown as the Cowboys win 44-22 and really win in comfortable fashion. George Pickens also had a fabulous game. As long as the Cowboys can manage to put points on the board, I think they'll be okay. But their defense just has to figure it out, and they figured it out this game. A couple takeaways, obviously one on Marcus Mariota, but at the end of the day, a win is a win. 3-1. Cowboys are still right in prime position to do whatever they want this season. So we'll see what happens. Just keep your pedal to the metal. You just got to keep moving forward day by day ever since that day that you traded Micah Parsons. But moving on to the Micah Parsons team, the Packers prevailed in Arizona, winning 27-23 in Glendale, Arizona. Jacoby Brissett did have 279 yards on 25 of 36 passing, 2 touchdowns. Knight went ahead and had 14 carries of 57 yards. Bam Knight did, and Trey McBride, 10 receptions, 74 yards, and 2 touchdowns as they went ahead and tried to get ahead and beat the Packers, but couldn't get it done. Jordan Love prevailing, having a decent game there towards the end, going ahead and just getting it done when it needs to get done. Packers are now 4-1-1 in real prime position to go ahead and do whatever they want in the NFC. So watch out for the Packers. Obviously, they were my preseason favorite before the Micah Parsons trade, and now really coming into fruition and winning these games. They're gonna be always under the radar when it comes to winning these games because I feel like they don't get talked about enough. But at the end of the day, going ahead and getting it done and moving to 4-1-1 now. The final game of the Sunday slate, the Falcons went ahead and went into Santa Clara and lost to the Niners, a depleted Niners team, but the Niners prevailed against the Falcons as Kyle Shanahan managed to rally this team and get them going to a 5-2 record, winning 20-10. Michael Penix still had a game though, going 21 of 38, not really efficient, but having 241 and 1 touchdown. Christian McCaffrey was the star of the show, going 24 carries, 129 yards, and 2 tutties, not to mention, obviously, his receptions. Also, having 7 receptions for 72 yards, leading the entire game for receptions. So, can't say enough about him. They knew what they were going to get into going into that game. I'm talking in Atlanta terms. And Trent Williams even said post-game, they were going to deploy him the entire game. Kyle Shanahan made it, very clear that this is what they were going to do going into this game. And they did so. Christian McCaffrey having a day. And I hope he stays healthy the entire year because when he is healthy, he is one of the best backs, if not the best back in the entire league. Moving on to the Monday slate, which was last night. the last doubleheader of the season as the Buccaneers and Lions faced off. The Lions went ahead and prevailed, advancing to 5-2, as the Buccaneers were already 5-1, and they now fall to 5-2. The Lions win 24-9 as Jared Goff went 20 of 29, 241 and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs 17 carries, 136 and 2 touchdowns. St. Brown 6 receptions, 86 yards and 1 touchdown as well. Texans and Seahawks also faced off in this matchup of Monday night duos, and the Seahawks prevailed 27-19 in a late comeback. Even though C.J. Stroud did have 229, he had passed the ball 49 times. He didn't look all too well. I know his stats probably say he looked pretty decent, but he really didn't. He had 1 touchdown. Kenneth Walker had 17 carries for 66 yards. Jackson Smith-Njigba 8 receptions, 123 and 1 touchdown. Houston's defense played well and really kept the Texans in the game with this one, but the offense is just not good enough, and you need your receivers back. You need a better O-line. You need Joe Mixon back. We'll see where the Texans are in a couple weeks. But back to the Lions and Buccaneers. The Lions really just put belt to cheeks on the Buccaneers. Buccaneers really didn't do anything all game, and going on into next week, we'll see what happens with these teams, going forward with the NFC, because, man, it's an onslaught next week. It's an onslaught. But we'll start with the Thursday night game. Let's get right into the slate for next week before we forget. The Thursday night game, which I am attending. Lego. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to be going to back-to-back games, but this is actually going to be, for a work event, a little career fair at the stadium. But with all that being said, I'm still going to the game. I'm still going to be watching, and hopefully this time we get the dub when I'm there. We're going to be playing the Vikings on Thursday Night Football there on Prime Video in SoFi, so going to be interesting, obviously, because I'm going to be there, but we need to win this game. Hopefully, J.J. McCarthy will be playing, so we can see a pretty decent matchup between J.J. McCarthy and the Chargers and Justin Herbert, not to mention the fact that J.J. McCarthy used to be the quarterback of Michigan, so that's Jim Harbaugh's old quarterback, so that would be cool. So I'd love to see that matchup and go to that. That will be Thursday. And now moving on to the Sunday slate, as we have the Dolphins and Falcons facing off. We'll see what happens there. Obviously, I favor the Falcons there. The Jets and Bengals. We'll see if the Jets can get their first win of the season. The Patriots and Browns. This is going to be an interesting trap game for the Patriots. I think the Eagles and Giants. We'll see if the Giants can prevail against the Eagles, because this is the second time playing them in 2 weeks, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. The Bills and Panthers, that's going to be an interesting matchup there, because the Bills, obviously coming off that loss last Thursday and now wanting to get ahead and get this dub against the when was their loss? Not too long ago, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, they had a bye, whatever it was. They're going to be facing a team that's hot right now in the Carolina Panthers, who are 4-3. The Bears are going to face the Ravens after the Ravens have been just absolutely struggling. Hopefully they, figured it out after that bye week. But man, it's going to be a long, long season, a long comeback for this Ravens team, already in a giant deficit at 1-5. The 49ers are going to Houston to go ahead and face off against the Texans. We'll see if DeMeco Ryans can stop his former team. The Buccaneers are heading to New Orleans to face the Saints. The Saints have been putting up a fight with a lot of teams this year, but the record does not say that. So we'll see if they can go ahead and beat the Buccaneers in New Orleans. The Cowboys are going to be heading to Denver to face a tough defense and a tough team in the Broncos, and I hope the Cowboys prevail. The Titans are going to be heading to Indianapolis against a potent Colts team, and the Colts are legit. They're absolutely legit after what they did to my Chargers this past weekend. Like I said, Justin Herbert just didn't look good. Our run game really wasn't there. We didn't score points early, and this Colts team is legit. Defense is legit. Jonathan Taylor is legit. Daniel Jones has been playing legit. So we'll see what happens there. And then to end the Sunday slate on Sunday Night Football, we got the Packers and Steelers. For the first time, Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing his former team, so it's going to be exciting to see the Packers facing off against the Steelers. Obviously, there's going to be drama there. And then to end the end the slate of Week 8. We got a Monday night matchup between the Commanders and Chiefs. Not sure if Mariota is going to be lined up under center for the Commanders, but still going to be an interesting matchup between these two foes. So that is the Week 8 slate. But man, NFL has been getting underway, y'all. Getting crazy. It's been absolutely insane. Let's get into some NFL standings before we get out of this NFL segment. Let's go division by division. AFC East, the Patriots are actually 5-2 over the 4-2 Bills. And then we got the 1-6 Dolphins and the 0-7 Jets. We go into the North as the Steelers are leading that division by a couple games, really, as over the Cincinnati Bengals right now are 3-4. Pittsburgh 4-2, Cleveland 2-5, and Baltimore 1-5. Just cannot believe the Ravens are 1-5. AFC South, Indianapolis Colts 6-1, unprecedented, as the Jacksonville Jaguars are 4-3. Houston Texans 2-4, Tennessee Titans 1-6, and moving on to the last AFC division in the West, as the Broncos are now leading the division after the Chargers were leading it for that long. 5-2, Broncos sit at, as the Chargers are 4-3, and the Kansas City Chiefs at 4-3 and the Raiders at 2-5. Moving on to the NFC, we'll start with the East as the Eagles lead that division 5-2 over the Dallas Cowboys 3-3, Washington 3-4, Giants 2-5. Going to the North, Packers lead that division at 4-1-1, Lions 5-2, Chicago 4-2, and Minnesota 3-3. I still think this is the toughest division in the entire NFL. The NFC South, Tampa Bay Buccaneers 5-2, Panthers 4-3, Falcons 3-3, and New Orleans Saints 1-6 in the West. This is also one of the toughest divisions in the league, and the 49ers are 5-2, Seahawks 5-2, and the Rams 5-2. Like I said, guys, these divisions are nuts in the NFC, but those are the standings as we speak today on this Tuesday. And overall, how are we feeling, y'all? How are we feeling about our teams, where we stand in these past couple of weeks? How are we feeling? I know how I feel personally. Not too hot, not too great, because of the fact that our roster is completely depleted. I know we have some pretty impressive wins in the early part of the season, but now that we enter the latter part of the season, it's almost halfway, guys. We need to start clicking and getting these things rolling, because these next 4 to 5 games are very pivotal when this, what happens with this season. Next 4 to 5 games are going to really decide what's going to happen going further into the postseason. But the Bengals go ahead, like I said, and add Joe Flacco to their roster. That was something that's very interesting for the Bengals. The Bengals are kind of turning the corner. Dillion Gabriel now starting for the Browns, because obviously they swap positions. So that's going to be interesting to see, eventually when Joe Burrow comes back, how will the Bengals be sitting? I think Joe Flacco can do a great job. He did it not too long ago, not only with the Colts, but also with the Browns. So we'll see what happens there. The Mac Jones also is showing out in San Francisco. Is he worth, going ahead and getting another starting job somewhere else, winning a couple games, with Brock Purdy out? Is Purdy in trouble? I'm kidding. Purdy's not. But Mac Jones does deserve another starting position, and we'll see if he gets one. Miami continues their downfall, losing their heartbreaker, from not only the Titans and the Chargers, but then last week to the Browns. Just terrible, back-to-back weeks for the Miami Dolphins. And like I said, Mike McDaniel might be out of a coaching position because of what has transpired. It needs to be changed. Eagles, get handed back-to-back L's and then finally win, last week, prevailing after they went ahead and lost, to Bo Nix and the Giants as well. So in back-to-back weeks, but hopefully we see a little bit of turning the corner with that offense, and then maybe that Saquon Barkley gets a little bit going, or they pass the ball more. I don't know, but what do we want to look forward to in this season? There's so much to talk about. What are your hot takes, guys? Go ahead and drop them in the comments, because I'm interested. But right after the break, in the final break, we'll be getting into some college football, some NHL, and to round it out, we'll be talking about the NBA being back today. Let's get it.